Welcome to the Parents at Work podcast, a podcast for the modern parent working in the modern world. Join us as we interview leading experts in their fields to unveil the secrets working parents need to succeed at work.
Welcome to the Parents at Work podcast, the podcast for parents who want to excel at work even though they've got young kids at home. I'm Tom Spiegel, the host of the show, the founder of the Spiegel Law Firm, where we represent folks who have been fired or afraid that they might be. And we focus on pregnant women and folks with caregiver responsibilities. And I am thrilled today to have join us Dan Kuschell. And I'll let you give a better introduction, Dan, but you're a serial entrepreneur. You've got a lot of things going on and a great website, which we are going to put in the show notes. And you've got an interesting story about how you came to your career path that is closely tied to probably your most important role as a father. So I'll turn it over to you and you can introduce yourself to folks and let them know what the many things that you do.
Absolutely. And it's a pleasure to be here, Tom. I know, it's so funny because a lot of times I think as a parent and entrepreneur, sometimes the theory out there is that you might have to sacrifice to really go build something. And I will say, at least for me, that was a thought I had early on in my business career. The old idea, what are you willing to give up in order to get what you want? And I saw and see a lot of parents who struggle as entrepreneurs of this, work-life balance. And, for me, it's also to some degree been a struggle to think about and to live in a certain way. And I know for right now, what we're really excited, I'm a dad of two and a husband. Those are my 1A roles in my life today. And then also I've been fortunate to run, 12 different companies from startup since 1992 and been able to help a lot of companies grow. And what we really do is we help business owners, coaches, consultants, influencers connect the dots, see the blind spots, get unstuck so that they can go out and get new clients in a more predictable, systematic, automated way. So most importantly, they can have a bigger impact, a bigger reach, a bigger contribution. And, it's a lot of fun, Tom. And, it's fun navigating the balance. My son right now is taking up football. He's 10 years old. And one of my great joys right now is that I get to be a volunteer coach, in the middle of the afternoon, a couple days a week, while I can still run my businesses. And, I know there's some people doing a whole lot more, but for me, that's like one of the greatest gifts to be able to spend that time with my son. I get to do similar things with my daughter as well. And it's a joy. And so ideally, if we are able to share a few insights today to help parents navigating this journey, because it isn't easy. The old quote that pops up for me right now is from Brian Tracy: don't ask for it to be easy, ask for it to be worth it. And, what greater gift for all of us to be a leader at home with our family and our kids first, and then be able to transcend that into our businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, as much as it can be a struggle, it's always, kids are high energy and they require a lot of time. It's a pleasure to give it to them, and I find myself having to do that too sometimes. I'll take a break and go coach my son's. When I say coach, basically I stand on the sideline and say, run that way. Very low level coaching, but I'll go coach a soccer team. And, sometimes I'll find myself saying, I'm really in a groove at work. I got something going on and now I got to take a break and go to this soccer thing. And then I have to stop myself and say, what a privilege that is, and to be grateful for that. And sometimes you really just have to, I think even for those of us who have the ability to control our, lucky enough to control our schedules, there is this temptation to let work kind of drive the train, because in our society we get, so much of our identity is tied up in that, and we get so much praise from working so hard and being so committed. And sometimes it's hard, even when you have the choice, to unglue yourself from that.
Absolutely. It's an interesting game. And I think, as entrepreneurship, works, I think the number one focus that we all have to look at is mindset, right?
Right.
And, in the journey of an entrepreneur, and I don't want to assume, but, having reviewed, somewhere over 4,000 businesses over the last few years, interviewing tens of thousands of business owners over the last decade or so, found some interesting things. And one of the mindset things that pops in, those, I'll call it voices, but it may not be voices because somebody might take that out of context. Like, what are you talking about? Voices. But the voice of doubt, right? Or the voice of fear or insecurity, right? And so we all face these, and there's, three big ones that I think we have to overcome if we really want to get to that next level as a business owner and parent. And number one, it's the imposter syndrome, right? And, am I good enough? Am I worthy? That sort of thing. And then the second one is, some guilt, right? Because there's the guilt of, that I have to sacrifice so I can get the result I want. Where am I going to sacrifice? Do I sacrifice in the business? Do I sacrifice with my family or my kids, right? And then the other one is shame as a result of maybe, having to sacrifice to some degree. And, a lot of this stems from childhood issues. If we track it back, I know for me, I grew up in the inner city of Detroit, and, my dad was in the auto industry with a big automaker, and he got laid off. It seemed like every other year. And there was one stretch where he was laid off for several years, and we ended up on welfare. And I know I can remember the time distinctly when I realized I was going to go do something different. As you're listening right now, maybe you can remember back, like what was that thing where you can remember back where you're like, I'm going to do things different, right? I never wanted to go back to our family being on welfare and, being in that type of state and that type of situation. And so whatever it is for you as you're listening right now with any kind of childhood issues, and maybe you were in a family that it was awesome, but there are other potentially, to prove your worth or whatever it might be. The reality is that these little voices pop in, and instead of going, well, what if it doesn't work? Or what if I'm not good enough? Or what if oh my gosh, I don't want to sacrifice my kid's soccer game for work, or vice versa. I've got to get this project done because we got a big contract and this could transform our family. Well, what if it did work? And what if instead of trying to balance it all, you tried to just integrate it? Right. I see a lot of parents who live for their kids, and it's interesting, and I get it. I made a choice early on because of a lot of coaching that I've had, not because I came up with it, Tom, but it was the idea of living with my kids and showing them the life. My favorite class in school when I was younger, frankly, was show and tell.
Oh, yeah.
If that resonates with you or not. But show and tell was a favorite of not only for me when I would do it, but also watching the other kids do show and tell. So I try to live my life by showing and telling. Leadership is as leadership does. And so there's a lot of different ways to go on that. But, if you're watching right now or listening and you're struggling with, those voices or a little guilt or shame, hey, look back to where maybe it stems from. And then instead of trying to come up with this full balanced life, I believe balance is BS to some degree, a better way. And it could be semantics partially, but it's more of an integrated life. It's family, it's faith, and then it would likely play into business and the other things that integrate in there. So
yeah, a couple of things before I forget. One is if you could give us the URL to your website so folks can find you if they want, and hopefully they will. The second, three things I'm going to throw at you here. The second is if you could tell us your parenting story, like how you came to where you are in terms of your role as a father and what role that played in your business. Then finally, and I'm going to let you run with it, we're going to pump you for some free advice here because you are, a sought after business advisor. For those people who might be listening who are, we do have certainly entrepreneurs that listen but are not yet, but might be thinking about it. They're on the metro, they're on their way to work, and they've got a young child and they've always thought about starting a business, but just haven't quite pulled that trigger. What would you tell that person? What have you learned, and what would you say to them? So I'll let you go with those three.
Awesome. So I'll start with the parenting story. For me, my kids have been my greatest teacher and my greatest coach, frankly, because left to my own devices, I'm a mess, just candidly. I am a workaholic by nature. I suffer from that respectable addiction, if there is such a thing.
It is. You're right.
Workaholism. Yeah. And, I don't know if you're listening right now, but you find yourself where it's easy for you to work 70, 80, 100 hours a week, nonstop, limitless to some degree. And candidly, that's my personality type. It's easy for me to work 100 hours a week. And I had built up some companies over time. I've had, 12 companies now, multiple 7-figure, 8-figure companies, but I had 3 that were, tragic failures. They were miserable failures. So I buried those in the backyard. A lot of learning lessons from them. In the mid 2000s, I, was in the middle of building at the time 5 companies at once. My daughter was 2 and my son had just been born. And if you can imagine, the pride and joy, maybe if your goal was to have 1 boy and 1 girl, and your goal was to also have your little bambino that might, be somebody you could hang out with and be your buddy. I was fortunate and blessed to have that happen. And about 3 weeks after my son Kyler was born, I woke up with some tightness in my chest. And this is at a peak. I had 175 employees. If you could imagine that, 5 companies, we were doing really well, financially, a lot of growth, a lot of momentum year after year up to that point. And long and the short, I had chest tightness. I ended up in a hospital for 4 days. And on the 2nd day, I believe it was, the doctor came in and said, hey, we want to do a procedure and you need to sign this disclaimer. And the disclaimer was I had a 1 in X chance of dying going through this procedure. And Tom, what it did is it freaked me out. And first of all, I did the procedure, precautionary, and I came through it, thankfully. But for me, in that whole experience, it really got me to reevaluate everything that I stood for, what I was doing, what I wasn't doing. And, for about a decade up to that point, I had sacrificed. I had been willing to sacrifice certain things to go build something for my family. One of those was sleep, because I had bought into the idea, like many people as entrepreneurs, hustle and grind and go 24/7 and that sort of thing. So I sacrificed one area that I see a lot of business owners sacrifice, and that was sleep. For a decade, I had averaged only about 2 to 4 hours a day.
Oh my God. Well, I don't know how you functioned.
Exactly. And ultimately, that's why I ended up it was burnout. It is ultimately, I look back today and it's kind of easy for me to see that. And, it was burnout and stress and anxiety and all these things built up over, it didn't happen overnight. It happened of a series of bad habits for 10 years overnight. And so I came out of that experience. Long and the short, I hired another coach because I've always believed in coaching. Which is a great lesson. If I were starting over again, what's the number 1 advice I would give somebody outside of focusing and learning direct response marketing? It would be get a coach. So I had gotten another coach. Her name is Dr. Christy Lopez.
1 second, Dan. Where would you recommend for folks who are like, that sounds great, where do I find a coach? How do you do it? What would you say to folks? How do you even begin that process?
It's a process of identifying what your strengths are and where you need support. To start with, some people need just accountability. A lot of people, do need support with like direct response marketing combined with the mindset. Right. So there's some, great platforms. I mean, even if someone is brand new, Tom, for whatever reason, I have always just found a way to work myself into getting coaches. Right. And it could start like in your local area right now, wherever you are in the world, you could probably find a local meetup group, and you could do meetup group, and you could start networking with other business owners and ultimately come up with a relationship where you get an accountability partner, where you hold you talk about what you're going for, what's your bottlenecks, what are your roadblocks, and help support each other get through those outcomes. So that could be an easy way. That's a virtually no cost way to do it. And then, some of the best organizations out there for coaching, I've been a part of Strategic Coach. I know, Tom, you and I share that as well. Been a part of Strategic Coach for many years. So strategiccoach.com is a great resource overall. And then if you're looking for, specific areas, I would encourage you to, get with Tom and his community and just say, hey, I need help with X. And Tom, because he's so well connected out there in the marketplace, could probably direct you in the right path. Right. And there's probably many resources that Tom has that maybe you're not aware of that he could help you with. So those would be a couple things, overall. So I got a coach, and she gave me 3 incredible, she gave me many, but the 3 that I still use almost every day today, like being on this show, your show, Tom, doing what I do today in business, is all because of these conscious questions, these 3 things she gave me. So I'd love to share these overall. And you may want to write these down as you're listening, because they've transformed my life. I've seen them transform many, many others too. And the first question she got me to look at was, what do you want? Right? Not what do your kids want? Not what does your wife want? Not what does your at that time, 175 employees want? What do you want? And it's 2 parts. One is personally, right? Which a lot of people will take that stuff, but very few people actually take the step to go, what do I want my business to do for me? Think about that. We're so willing to sacrifice almost anything to go build our dream and build our vision and transform, our businesses. But what are we asking our business to do for us? Right. And see, if we don't take that step, at least this is what I learned from this experience, Tom. And again, I didn't invent any of this, but what I learned from this is that, we can choose to have our business working for us, or we're working for it.
True.
And it is a choice, and it's a conscious choice if we don't get clear on what do we want from that business. Right. So that's one step. The second question that she got me to ask is, who are you? Not all the labels and not all the titles and not all the, CEO letterings and those sorts of things. But what are the characteristics as a human being, right? It's the human being stuff, not the human doing.
Right. Yeah. Excellent point.
Right. And then the third is, what do you stand for? And so these are values. And, lots of people talk about company values, which is awesome. But what about family values? What would happen for you as you're listening right now if you, focused on developing a set of, 5 to 7 or so core family values that you and your kids live by? And so coming to what you mentioned, Tom, about my kids. So as I came out of this experience, so again, my daughter at that time was about 2. My son was a newborn. He was in his first couple of weeks. And I came out of it. I went through this process over the course of several months. And we did some things. I started right away with my kids as far as some core values. We taught them what we call the 4 L's, that our life is about living, loving, learning, and laughing. Right. And I kind of adapted that from, a speech that Jim Valvano, the late North Carolina State coach who had gotten cancer, and now they have the V Foundation. So I adapted those 4 L's from his talk that he had done. And then we got into what are the Kuschell values. Like if you ask my kids today, what are the Kuschell values? They'll go champion, choose, health, action, mastery, purpose, invest in yourself, opportunity seeker, and never quit on you. And so having that foundation of values and, what do you stand for as a family, I think helps, us identify, like when I'm having a conversation with my kids, hey, are we living the 4 L's right now?
Yeah.
Right. If we're having a discussion, if there's an issue that needs to be corrected, right? We match up against those values. So I there's certainly a whole lot more, but I would say that's been those 3 questions and then adapting those into the family have been so incredibly powerful, Tom, that I just feel incredibly blessed. And again, we're not perfect. My kids are not perfect. I'm not perfect, but I can say that compared to the crazy stress and anxiety of running my businesses, a decade ago before I sold my company. Oh, by the way, and that led to my decision when I decided what I wanted. I realized, this has been awesome and I love business, but I don't necessarily need all of this stuff. I don't need 200 employees and 3 offices and all this. So I made a personal choice as a result of that reflection and that experience that I ended up selling my companies. And I was blessed to be able to even do that and exit. I sold 2 of my companies and then get a chance to take some space and really engage and be involved with my kids as a semi full-time dad for, a year and a half or so before the itch came back that I had to be involved doing some fun projects.
Nothing wrong with that, right? Well, Okay, that's great. That's fantastic. So for somebody, and again, I want to be able to rely on your expertise here for somebody who's thinking about starting a business. Maybe they've got the coach, they get their family, values and the things that you just talked about, their core values straightened out. But what's as somebody who's an expert at starting businesses, how do they take the first step? What would you recommend? Besides obviously going to your website, you've got some great material on your website about how to start a business and how to market and how to grow one. But what would you tell folks here?
Yeah, so I'll do the self-promoting plug here, Tom. Thank you for that. If you want to go deeper and you'd like to learn how to set things up so that you can get more new clients, right? How you can build an automated method to attract your ideal clients, as well as have it sustainable, a predictable method, so you own the business instead of it owning you. You can go check out our resource. We have on-demand training, basically like a mini series. You could look at it like, and if you want to take advantage of that, it's free, by the way. You can do that in one of two places. One, you can go to breakthroughx.com/training. That's breakthroughx.com/training. Or you can go to our Facebook page and look up Breakthrough X. And we put a lot of the mini series and tools and resources just open source to the community. And I'll give you that URL here in a second. And that is breakthroughx.com/group, breakthroughx.com/group. We do curate the group to make sure we've got the right type of people there as well. So you just have to answer 3 questions about your business. And once you do that, our team filters it, and then we approve you and you can come into the community. So that would be 2 steps to get additional resources. Now, if I were starting and someone were to ask me the question, Tom, like, what would you recommend getting started? There's certainly a lot. I would say there's a big myth and big misunderstanding, right? About, if I'm good at something, I'll make money or I'll get paid doing what I'm doing or doing what I love, right? We've probably all heard that to some degree. And I learned this originally from Gary Halbert years ago, who's one of the great copywriters in the world, copywriter teachers on writing messages to attract your ideal clients. And he says, there's no correlation between being good and getting paid. And it's so true, right? Because how many times have we seen that it seems there's some people that are just out there crushing it with marginal talent, and then there's people with a super talents but are struggling to get by. It's not the product, it's not the service, it's how it's received in the market. But how it's received in the market has everything to do with the message. So it's working on our messaging. And, here's a simple way to think about messaging to some degree. It's a visual. If you can picture a $1 bill and a $100 bill, right? And if you put them on top of each other, they're exact same size. If you look at them closely, you'll recognize the color of the ink. It's the exact same color. If you put them on a scale, you'll recognize that they're both the same, pretty closely the same exact weight, right? So the ink's the same, the size is the same, the weight is the same. The only difference, the only thing that shifts a $1 bill to a $100 bill is the message on the paper. And when we can get good, if not great, with our messaging, we go from being a dollar type earner to a $100 earner or exponentially higher. So when you work on your messaging and your ability to connect with your audience, and this comes to, essentially marketing. And some people have a myth also around marketing, like what is marketing? All marketing is storytelling about a product or a service. That's really all, nothing more. So everybody that's listening right now, you might go, I'm no good at marketing. Well, you're selling yourself on a story that you're no good at marketing. You're actually already starting the process of being a good storyteller, right? And, all marketing really is, beyond storytelling, if you want to go deeper, is it's marketing. I'm a big sports guy. And so if you watch sports at all, or at least understand football, for example, it's like field position in a football game. So if you could imagine a kickoff in a football game, you take the ball at the goal line and you're going to try to return it. Now, I'm old. I'm, coming up closer to 50 and I'm kind of slow now, right? And I catch the ball at the goal line and now I take like maybe a half a step and now I get crushed by all these super athletes, right? So maybe 1 yard. I got 1 yard out of that. So now I've got 99 yards to go down the field. Well, that's in relation to marketing. My marketing got me 1 yard. The other 99 yards, if I don't have good marketing, means I have to have a great sales system. And that's where overselling, the idea of overselling comes in. And we've all been there, the overzealous salesperson in the car dealerships. And, you could name 10 different places this has shown up because the marketing isn't effective. It's not efficient, right? On the other hand, if I am theoretically, if I were a world-class athlete and I took the ball at the goal line and I returned it 80 yards, right? Let's say I was one of these young studs that are playing now and I returned it 80 yards. Now I only have 20 yards to go. So I don't need as much. I don't need as an effective of a sales team or a sales system because my marketing helped create better field position. So that's really a great visual of what marketing can do for you. It gives you better field position. It's like that $1 to $100 situation. Another way to look at marketing, Tom, as it relates to this question is marketing is what we do to get people on the phone or in front of us face to face, and they're pre-positioned, pre-qualified, pre-educated, pre-interested, and pre-motivated, ready to do business with us at some degree. Then, because sometimes the people also, we've all seen it, is they confuse marketing and selling. So what is selling then, if we've covered marketing? Well, selling is influence at the end of the day, right? It's a pulling relationship, not a pushing relationship. And influence or selling is what you do when you get someone on the phone or face-to-face with us, right, who's already pre-positioned, pre-qualified, pre-motivated, and so on. Another definition I love of selling is from actually one of our coaches, Tom, which is Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach. He says selling is getting someone intellectually engaged in a future result that is good for them so they can emotionally take action to achieve that result, right? And a key part of that is good for them, right? And so if you're listening right now and you're looking for a way to transform your business getting started, I would encourage you to put focus on working on your messaging and your marketing, right, which are unique in many ways the same, and then the selling, right, creating a sales model. And again, if you want to go deeper with any of this stuff, we've got these resources, our mini series on-demand training at breakthroughx.com/training, or you can go in our private group in Facebook at breakthroughx.com/group.
Sounds like exciting stuff. I'm going to check it out. Let me add two final questions for you. One is, what is there one piece of technology that you would recommend to folks that help you in your parenting life? And then I'm going to throw a little curveball at you. I didn't tell you about this one, but hopefully it's a not hard for you. Is there a book or more than one book that you would recommend that folks read to help them, in their career and parenting trajectory?
Absolutely. So technology that I use as a parent, I would say, and I'm going to give a unique one that you might not expect. It's Headspace.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Love that one.
Right. And Headspace, if you are listening here and you've never heard of it, it's a meditation app. And not only do I use it and find it incredibly useful for me personally, I've also used it with my kids and started to teach them the process of meditation. And they actually have certain meditations just for kids, so they're much shorter, right? And they're customized for kids, which is great. And so I'm introducing my kids to a healthy way, because let's face it, like what are some of the biggest challenges we all face is just like the human condition, the human spirit, human beings, right? Anxiety, stress, overwhelm, burnout, navigating all these types of things. And one of the most powerful ways is to slow down, to breathe, essentially, which is what meditation gives us the ability. And there's all kinds of different techniques to it, but this is a facilitated process. And I'm able to introduce this to my kids in a unique, fun way through an app. And we do it together sometimes. They do it on their own sometimes. And so that would be one that I would highly recommend, whether you're a parent with little kids, older kids, or otherwise. I think that could be a great, valuable resource as a parent.
Yeah, and and not only is it have short ones for kids, even for the adults. Like it's only 10 minutes. You can set it for longer, but sort of their basic course is 10 minutes a day, and you just pop the headphones in, and it's guided meditation. It's really a great and a very inexpensive app to use. So I think that's a great recommendation. How about books? Any books that have stood out to you or that have helped you as a parent?
Oh, yeah. There are so many.
Hard to pick sometimes.
Let's see. So, yes. Yeah, I'm reading typically, 1 to 2 books on average a month. So one that really stands out that I think everyone will get a lot of value from is How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So
That's great.
Kids
I
Will
don't know
Talk.
that one. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. And I mean, not only is it about being a better parent, it's also, in my mind, what I took from it is about being a better leader, right? Just leadership in general. And I think this is a great tool to be able to do that. My buddy Dean Graziosi introduced me to this book. I can't say enough about it. So that's the first one that jumps up. A second one that kind of ties in with the conversation of getting coaching and also being a parent, since Tom, that's what the show is about, would be a great book called The Coaching Habit. I think that one would be of great value. And then let's see, I'm actually flipping through my book reading list here just to jog my memory of which would be the most beneficial for everybody here. The other one that jumps out that might be counterintuitive, I have to give a shout out to my buddy Chris Voss, who is an ex-FBI agent, and we've gotten to know each other over the last couple of years, but he wrote a great book about negotiating called Never Split the Difference. And I don't know, as a parent, if you ever feel like you're negotiating with your kids, but this book also, I mean, it is about negotiation, and he tells some fascinating, I mean, the stories in this book are fascinating about what he did in like real FBI negotiating. But I took it, not only applied it from a perspective of negotiation day to day in business, but also, communicating with my wife, communicating better with my kids, being a better listener. Because a big part of it, I think, comes down to slowing down and not talking so much.
That's
it's fascinating.
I haven't heard of that one, but I'll have to check that out. We do that in our business a lot, so it's an important skill set. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people they view it as a tug of war, and particularly attorneys, and it's about exactly that. Let's split the difference. So that's fascinating. I look forward to reading those. Well, listen, Dan, unless you have any other nuggets of wisdom that you want to share, we'll call it quits for today. And I really appreciate you coming on the show. This has been some great stuff. And we'll put all of your URL and all these book links in our show notes for folks that want to check them out.
Tom, it's been a real pleasure. And as you're listening right now, the one thing I would challenge you to think is following, the wisdom that Tom makes available to you and all the great resources that him and his community have. If you stay committed and connected, most importantly, to the community, where could you be in the next 6 months, the next 12 months, the next 24 months, the next 36 months? And, maybe you're at a place right now where you're struggling with, balancing or integrating family and business life, or you're just kind of getting started and you don't even know where to start. A community like this can be such a godsend. And I'd encourage you to plant your seeds. And at times it can be, I'll just speak to myself. It can be frustrating. It can be like, oh my gosh, I'm just not seeing a lot of progress. And where's the light at the end of this tunnel? It's tough. And, I have found business to be one of the greatest personal development platforms in the world. It's the ultimate personal development platform, quite frankly. It challenges you, human being. It stretches you and a whole lot more. So, plug into Tom's community, take advantage of all the resources and wisdom that him and the group are making available to you. And, a handful of months from now, a year from now, 2 years, you'll look back and go, oh my gosh, look how far I've come. It is amazing. And I know you've seen it, Tom. I've seen it, and it's such a gift and such a blessing. I absolutely recommend folks check
out your programs too. You got such great information on your website, and come so highly recommended that folks should peruse that as well and consider getting involved in one of those communities. Well, Dan, thanks so much. Good luck with everything. We look forward to having you back on sometime. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Parents at Work podcast. Are you interested in learning more about our show, our hosts, or today's guest? Do you have a comment or question you'd like to share with the Parents at Work community? Then contact us at www.spigellaw.com/podcast. We'll see you next time.